Hey guys, welcome back to Stage 2 at GameSpot's coverage of E3. I am Cam and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen from Naughty Dog. We have both Neil and Bruce with me, who we're going to be talking to in just a second.
Hello.
So they are of course developers of The Last of Us, which is here in a big way at E3. So guys, before we have a look at some trailers and start talking about the game, tell us what's it like to have this game, which you've been working on for years, finally here at E3 and you're showing it all off to the fans.
3.5 years. 3.5 years of development.
3.5. Wow.
Yeah, and it comes out this Friday, so we're pretty excited about that.
Crazy. We have a few kiosks there where people can play a game, and there's a long line to play the game, even though it comes out in 2 days. We're stoked. The team is stoked.
Yeah, it's nice to see it being received like it's being received. It's beyond our expectations. It's totally beyond like our expectations, and it's super, super, super exciting.
Now, in case someone, for some reason, hasn't actually heard about The Last of Us, I think in a few seconds we'll get a trailer up so everyone watching can just get an idea of what it is. In fact, here it is right now. So if you guys, I think it's quite story heavy, so we'll just let the trailer play out and then we'll pick up afterwards with you guys. So let's have a look.
We won't get another shot at this. I want Joel to watch over her.
What on earth do the Fireflies want with you?
We ain't talking about some walk in the park here.
They're coming.
I know! At least they're predictable. It's the normal people that scare me. Get a move on.
Okay, so there we have it. That's the launch trailer, am I right?
Yes, that's the launch trailer.
Okay, cool. So I guess my first question to you guys, as you mentioned, it's been 3.5 years in development. When you very first decided, okay, we're going to follow up Uncharted with something different from what we've already done, why did you decide to choose a setting which, you know, is post-apocalyptic, it's kind of zombie-esque? Why did you decide to choose that as your setting for your next game?
I mean, we're big fans of the genre, and we felt, at least in games, you know, people haven't approached it from a very character-driven narrative perspective. And there's a story we wanted to tell with two characters. We had the idea of basing a whole game around a relationship. So at the start of the game, these two characters, Joel and Ellie, meet. They don't even like each other that much, but over the course of hours, and in the game time, it's an adventure that takes place over the course of a year, these two form a bond. And we felt like through interactivity, through mechanics, through story, through music, we could form a relationship unlike you've never felt in a game before. And we just felt that setting afforded us the most opportunities.
I mean, were you at all concerned that people might just see this and think, oh, it's another post-apocalyptic zombie game? Because, you know, there are two tropes that are well known and well used in video games.
Maybe a little bit, but again, we felt that once we could show the game that we had in our minds, the game that kind of we brainstormed and the team was excited about, we knew this was an experience no one has felt before. So even though maybe the high concept might seem similar, once you get your hands on it, people constantly say, I've never played a game like this. I've never experienced a relationship like this in a video game before.
A lot of what we were trying to do, like when we were kicking around the idea also, I mean, outside of the setting in the world and like grounding things, is like pull everything down, all the big set pieces, all the big action, and pull it down into the personal level. We really wanted to at each point or each turn where the conflict really like kicks into high gear and you feel like stakes are high, that means like somebody's life is at stake, somebody's life is in jeopardy, and so all the big action set pieces become much more personal and much more intimate. So everything that we're doing as far as like the core mechanics and the basic structure of like getting through each encounter and trying to make your way, whether it be stealth, whether it be like balls out action, whatever you want to do, you know, we're just trying to make you feel like a survivor. And then when you're feeling like Ellie save you with a brick, you know, you're out of ammo and you're up against the wall, and in the last second she can throw a brick, stunning an enemy and opening up her opportunity. Well, all these little moments just basically afford like the player to feel more like a survivor, so that then when these set pieces, when these big epic moments happen, well, you feel for those characters and you feel more like, all right, I know this person, I like this person, I'm engaged with this person, so like I need to help this person, and that can both operate both ways. You know, Ellie helping Joel, Joel helping Ellie.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously a lot of people watching are really itching to actually play the game. I've been lucky enough to play the first hour and a half. And I'm not going to say anything to spoil that first hour and a half because it's something pretty special. But I felt that the relationship there that you create at the beginning was created very quickly. So what I'm interested in getting at here is how do you go about when you've maybe just got maybe half an hour to set up a relationship? What's like the challenge in writing a story to do that? I mean, is it subtlety, or do you have to try and what tools do you have at your disposal to show, hey, you should care about these people? Because it can be quite tricky to do in a video game.
I think the best thing you could do is just make them human. Don't go out of your way to make them likable. Just show that they have flaws, so that they're not perfect. I think that's when you can relate to someone the most, and when you start liking them. And I think that's what people are really reacting to the Joel and Ellie and other characters that you see in the beginning of the game, is that they're not perfect. They have flaws. They're not good guys either. You know, what we really tried to do with this game is have this really moral gray area where it's like, people are just trying to survive, and Joel just happens to be trying to achieve something different than other survivors, and that kind of puts them in conflict. But they're not necessarily the bad guys. They're trying to survive as well. They're looking out for their buddies. They're just different buddies than Joel and Ellie.
So you mentioned the moral grey area. Was that quite a definite choice to be like, okay, so Uncharted had this really fun kind of almost tongue-in-cheek style to it that was really enjoyable. Were you like, this time we want to do something more gritty, more serious, more real?
I mean, it's all about the characters and the story we want to tell with those characters. And like Neil was saying earlier, I mean, everything from the type of lighting that we created and the world we created and the lushness, we're playing with contrast a lot. It's about the familiar and the unfamiliar. The fact that you know that coffee shop that's now flooded. You've been to the hotel and now it's overgrown, right? These things that kind of are a bit off-putting, that there's this contrast between something that seems like it should be full of life, and yet now it's abandoned, and it kind of represents loss and loss of human life. But at the exact same time, nature is reclaiming the earth, and there's lushness and beauty. And I think it's post-pandemic is what we call it, but it's like post-apocalyptic done in a different way, like in the Naughty Dog way, where it's all about beauty. We want to excite you about what's around the next corner, what's what you're going to see next, and what's going to happen with these characters next, what's going to happen with the story next, and like everything we're doing is just trying to tell this story about these two characters and try to create a believable, grounded world for them to exist and move through.
Okay. It was an interesting challenge to do more of that moral gray area. It's something we haven't done before, and we're excited to do it and excited to put that Naughty Dog stamp on that.
Yeah, cool. Well, you were talking about the level of detail that you got in terms of the environment, but something that I find really interesting, and I'm actually got kind of a science background, so I'm a bit of a science nerd. I'm really interested that when you went for your kind of bad guys, that you're infected, that you went down the route of like a fungal infection. And I read actually, and I was really hoping you guys could tell me whether this is true, that it's actually based on a BBC documentary about this fungus, the Cephalothorax or something, which actually infects ants. Is that right? Infects ants and kind of slowly kills the host ant and then like erupts through its head. Is that the basis for your bad guys?
It's the basis for kind of the infection in the world. We both saw the BBC documentary you're talking about, and they're talking about cordyceps, and this, at the end of that segment, David Attenborough talks about that this fungus, the more numerous a species becomes, and he's talking about insects, but he says the more numerous a species becomes, the more likely they are to fall victim to this cordyceps fungus. And right away we had the idea, what if it jumped to people?
Yeah.
And then we started looking at other parasites and how they operate, and how they do this behavior modification. And you have these wasps that burrow their larvae into spiders' minds and change how a spider builds a spider web.
I'm really sorry if you're eating right now, by the way, because
and instead of a spider thing has 12 steps of how it's built a spider web, but it alters its behavior, so it just does 3 of those steps, and it builds a cocoon around itself. And then the larvae hatch out, and just like really crazy stuff that's in nature that we could just borrow. And like, no matter how crazy our imagination is, it already exists in nature,
Yeah,
and that's the
yeah.
crazy part about it.
And what kind of gameplay opportunities did that give you? Because when I played, I noticed there was areas where there's like clouds of spores, and that's where you need to put the gas mask on. I thought that was a really nice touch. What other kind of opportunities did using this kind of fungal infection give you?
Well, we've only been talking about 2 different classes of infected so far, and there's stages as the military has deemed them, and then the survivors also have their own names for them. And the stage 1 is the runners; they can still see, so that has a very different play style, because of course now anytime you're in the line of sight, there's no consciousness, there's no empathy. They're just going to come at you, and they operate in packs, and they're going to run at you, and you just don't want to stay still. And then you have stage 3 is the clickers. So there's this whole lifespan from sporing to then getting affected to the manifestation of it's got sight, and then as just like the ants, like the spore starts growing out of their orifices, basically their eye sockets, and so it creates a blindness, and then the human element starts adapting this echolocation. So they click.
Wow.
That's why they're called clickers by the survivors, is because
Okay.
they're clicking around to get like the Doppler effect and getting the bounce off of the environment, and then anything that's moving inside of the environment is like recognized, like I can infect you, and so then you just don't want to touch those.
You guys must have had
like-
so much fun coming up with this in a really morbid way, but so much fun weaving these kind of enemies together and thinking, well, what would happen next? The fungus does this, and then so they're going to have to develop echolocation. That sounds like a hell of a lot of fun, right?
What's cool is you're working with such a talented team, so you come up with an idea and then somebody else runs with it, and all of a sudden it has this really cool look. Then the sound guys get a hold of it, and then you start hearing that clicking sound, and it's better than anything we've imagined. It's like this whole collective has put this game together, and we're super proud of how it ended up.
Great. And if you just remind everyone, when can they get their hands on The Last of Us, and on what platform?
It goes on sale midnight tomorrow night.
Wow.
Yeah, June 14th. Here it is. Let's do this.
For the Sony PlayStation 3, of course, right?
Exclusive to PlayStation 3.
Okay, so we've just got maybe time for one more question. I got to ask you guys. So now you've done Last of Us. It ships tomorrow night. Obviously there's going to be updates and various things. Make sure it's as perfect as it can be. What are you guys going to do now? What are you up to? What's your plans for the
vacation.
future?
Vacation.
Okay, well that's nice. But post-vacation.
We just started working on first time Naughty Dog's doing single player DLC, so there's a bit more story we want to tell, but it's still early days for that to give
Okay.
into more specifics.
Interesting. And then do you have any, and I know it's hard to predict into the future, but do you have any grand plans are you done with doing kind of sequels now? Are you, because this was like a new franchise for you and it seems like you've put everything into it. Are you keen to do another new franchise, or do you think you might try and do a sequel? Or too
One
early
game
to
at a
tell?
time. One game at a time. This one's just coming out. Let's get this thing out. Let's do the single player DLC. Let's do all our drops for the downloadable
Okay.
content. And then we'll see.
The thing we've always wanted is, this journey of Joel and Ellie, for that to stand on its own, that we wouldn't rely on having planned a trilogy or anything like that. And once, everybody's worked their asses off, they need a long vacation, we come back, we'll see what inspires us and go from there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Bruce and Neil. It's been great having you on the stage.
Thanks, Cam.
It's been
Thanks,
great to meet
Cameron.
you both as well. Good luck with the launch tomorrow night. And guys, make sure if you want to stick around on stage 2, which obviously you do, then please do, because up next we have The Puppeteer, which is a game I've been really looking forward to. So make sure you stick around, and we'll be back in around about 5 minutes.